Namaste and welcome to another episode of the Vichaar Manthan Sustainable Narratives podcast. Very excited today to bring you Sachinji Nanda, ex-private equity and current trustee of the Earth Charitable Foundation, is joining us here today to talk about political theory vertical within the Sustainable Narratives Conference in 2022, and in particular, the panel discussion that he will be hosting titled Nationalism versus Internationalism. Is there a middle way? Sachinji, welcome back to the podcast.
It's a real pleasure to be back.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for introducing us to this vertical of political theory. For everyone listening at home, could you help me sum up why something like political theory is important to the layman, is important to society as a whole?
Yeah, I think the way to think about it is a good way of thinking about this is imagine what politics is, right? So the police, politics comes from the word police, Greek, to mean to live together, right? And it's effectively the mechanisms that we have to pursue power. So politics is the pursuit of power, right? And its management. So the pursuit and the management of power. Political theory are the ideas that then help us governing power.
Okay.
So imagine the ideas that help you govern. So you got politics, but political theory are the ideas that helps us govern that idea. What are the tracks upon which power currently runs? And do we want it to run on a different set of tracks, or do we want it to go in a different direction? That's political theory.
Interesting. And some of the knock-on effects then of political theory are most other parts of society, governance itself, wealth, the way we
so correct. So if you think about it being the pursuit of power and the ideas which changes the mechanisms and the way in which power is consumed, channeled, used, abused, right, and held to account, that naturally affects all other things of life, right? It affects healthcare, it affects your roads, it affects your schools, it affects your well-being, right, in some very serious sense.
And interesting also, you mentioned that it's the layer of ideas, and the premise of Sustainable Narratives Conference is to look at ideas to see which are operating through society, challenge them. Do they stand up to the dock of time, of reality, of truth? Are they helping us? Is society flourishing? Are these ideas going to help us do that? Any thoughts you want to share upon that? When it comes to
I just think, well, first and foremost, I just think it's wonderful that these sorts of discussions are being had and you're attracting a global audience for this. I just think it is so important that every now and then, every citizen, right, of this planet gets an opportunity to step back, get out of the milieu of life, and then look at these meta-narratives, right? And really get an opportunity to think about why and how their life has ended up the way it is, right? All of our lives have ended up the way they are because of a particular political theory that is like kind of like the software that's running behind the scenes, you know? So all of us see the kind of desktop, but nobody really sees the coding behind it. Okay. Well, what we're discussing is the coding behind it, right?
And how does that coding identify the viruses and the malware we have installed in our lives, perhaps?
Yeah, quite right. There are definitely bad ideas, and there's definitely good ideas or better ideas.
Interesting to hear. And so if we talk about then, sort of, okay, political theory is a vertical within Sustainable Narratives, and then within that there's a panel discussion which you're hosting, but there's also two fireside conversations, navigating Hindu nationalism and understanding Hindutva, which are also taking part. And then there is the main panel discussion, which is nationalism versus internationalism. And you've got a great set of speakers.
We have indeed.
Who they are?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be kind of, engaging and talking to them and trying to get their views on this topic. So, so we have Sanjeev Sanyal. He's a world-renowned author, published many books. He's an Oxford graduate, but let's not hold that against him. He is the advisor to the Prime Minister's office. So he's an economist by training. So he's in a very influential role. He gets very much a global view. He has some very interesting ideas. And so definitely a thought leader, and I'm delighted he's with us. We also have Dr. Anirudh Rajput. He's been on Vichaar Manthan before. He's an international lawyer, so he will look at it, I suppose, from a systemic legal perspective. And he'll have some interesting insights into, the ability and the inability of our international systems to kind of help us get to where we want to. And then we have John Hutchinson. He's a visiting fellow at the LSE's Ideas Unit. And so he's written quite extensively on nationalism and trying to understand how nationalism and the idea of cultural nationalism. So he'll give us a nuanced view on how society affects these ideas of nationhood, right, and belonging and identity.
Thank you for that. And for the listeners at home, if you haven't registered yet, you need to go to vichaarmanthan.org, click on Sustainable Narratives. You can read through these verticals, read the profiles of all these speakers, and register for your ticket. As it is an exclusive event, you do need to register online in advance, and there's networking opportunities. You can speak to the booths and tune in to all of these fantastic conversations, in particular this panel discussion that we're discussing here with Sachinji today. So let's get into the topic a little bit, Sachinji. Nationalism, internationalism, these are big conversations, and the way I see it, at least sort of here in the West, nationalism is seen as a bit negative. And what does internationalism even mean?
Yeah. I think nationalism has a very, negative, pejorative. It is a pejorative word, right, here in the West. And nationalism usually means when somebody affiliates to a particular identity group that is bound by a geography, a territory, right? Okay. So German nationalism was a problem in the 1920s and 30s, right? We've had all forms of nationalism in the past, which has caused all sorts of bloody conflicts, right, all over the world. And of course, the main one by far and large being World War II, which was a problem of European nationalism with Mussolini, Hitler, and even the Japanese form of nationalism under the emperor. And so, it's resulted in quite a large catastrophe. So nationalism in that garb has scarred us and scarred our psyches and scarred our narratives ever since as to what it is. And we've generally, in the West, we've learned to really kind of, I suppose, push those ideas of nationalism back into the bottle, as it were. And we've loosely tied up the cork back in the bottle. However, and we've obviously become very internationalist in our view, and which I think, on the whole we've generally seen as a very positive thing, right? We're one humanity, we're one earth, one family, environmentalism, all of this construes and takes us towards an international outlook that I am one member of a humanity on this planet. However, what that's also done, which we're now discovering, is that it's left people feeling deeply alienated from, their sense of who they are, their purpose. And the reality is, as much as romantic as internationalism sounds, most human beings still prefer to live with people of their own kind. Sure. Most human beings get pretty irked and pretty scared when they see lots and lots of people who live, speak, behave in ways that are contrary to how they want to speak, live, and behave, right? So hence you get the migration problems. And so what that does is you then get forces within the political spectrum that pull out the ideas out of that bottle again of nationalism, which then allows them to kind of, rally the mob, right, as they say, to say, look, you are British first, British jobs for British people. Politicians come out with these sorts of things, but what they're drawing on is this political theory of nationalism, right? And at the same time, we've got, the environmental movement, right, generally uses the rhetoric and the theories of internationalism. Sure. Now, both of them seem to collide in this point of human experience. Humans want to feel rooted to where they are. They want to belong somewhere and belong to something, while at the same time, they understand cognitively that, yeah, I'm a part of humanity and I want to be part of the world and it's good to live in peace. But, I still don't want too many foreigners in my neighborhood, right? So there's all these challenges going on, and this is what we're trying to untangle.
And perhaps understand if there's a better way to achieve some of these, because something like identity crisis for a lot of people in many different ways, in many different spectrums, whether it is their work and their purpose, or their color and where they're living, or the cultural norms they carry out, or just how they live their life, as peaceful or unpeaceful as that may be, and in cohesion or not in cohesion with their current society. So there's lots of different things to sort of tussle with and play with. So I guess this kind of affects all of us.
You see, Subhaji, I would say this topic should help us. It won't get us to any answers, but it will help us unravel and untangle the issues that we've faced recently in this country. For example, Brexit. Sure. Brexit was a classic case of nationalism versus sort of semi-internationalism, right? So the European Union is one step towards that direction, right? It will help us deal with national interests versus international climate change.
Sure.
Right? And so on and so forth. So we are grappling with this stuff all the time, right? Even the Scottish independence, that is kind of a challenge there for our constitution. It all kind of steeps into this area.
And I guess things like this are quite important, especially when you have international level conflict. So even the Russia-Ukraine war that's happening, or has been happening, affects more than one country. There's plights of sort of NATO, European Union, and then if these people help those people, then it could become quite bloody again. Humanity, as we know it, could be entering a geopolitical war.
And that's absolutely right. And I think this is where I think you're absolutely correct in what you just said, which is we need to figure out a new symbiotic, synthetic solution between this urge to belong, urge to be national, while understanding the fact that it's in my benefit and in the benefit of future generations to be international, right? So how do we do that? Now, I think here, Vichaar Manthan is a perfect platform to not just explore the pros and cons of both, but actually to start weaving in alternative narratives that are steeped in classical Hindu philosophy, right? And India has had to deal with diversity for millennia. And so the culture that we call Hindu is a synthetic culture, right? And that synthetic culture within it has lots and lots and lots of inbuilt mechanisms that we could maybe draw on, which helps us get ourselves through this kind of predicament.
Sure, the middle way perhaps is Dharma. So something like Vasudeva Kutumbakam, a great shloka, kind of calls upon what you're saying and helps solve some of those problems. So I think we'll have an interesting conversation for sure. Is there any particular question or topic or something that our listeners should be thinking about before they arrive at this particular panel discussion at the Sustainable Narratives Conference?
I think that the first thing is I think whatever preconceived ideas people have about nationalism and internationalism, we just need to, for a little while, just park it to one side. I think what we need to do is just really have a go for 2 hours at just untangling the past, the present, and then look at the future with clear eyes, right? Because the reality of this, Sumaji, as far as I can see, is that we really do need to get this right, right? There is a reason why the European Union was a project to create peace in Europe, right? And it was because of nationalism. But at the same time, nationalism allows people to come together and build communities, feel safe. Both are important. And we mustn't dismiss one or the other. We need to come with really open, clear mind to explore this topic.
Great. And I was just having thoughts there of, you mentioned Brexit, and then they were talking about Frexit, and all these other countries just start thinking, hold on, what if I do this? And then the Scottish divide. And then over on the other side of the pond, you've got Make America Great Again, and what's going on in that country and how it is spanning there. And then I guess towards the east as well, there's always this tussle of identity in the Middle East and the Jewish communities and Islam that travels there. And then you've got this other south to east, sort of Hindu, Buddhist, Jain communities as well, and everyone deals with, and then the whole Russia Federation as well that existed. So this is a challenge for all nations.
As I said, right, these are the meta narratives that we then see trickling in to our political narratives, right? So when Trump says make America great again, or when Biden says, hey, you know, America's back on the international stage, right? These guys are drawing on well-traversed narratives, but we as citizens of the world who put them in power and who can hold them to account, we need to be able to know now what those meta-narratives they're drawing on are, and are they really trying to bind us together as one humanity in a sensible way where I can still feel safe and rooted, or are they actually creating the anger of the anger of devils, as they say, by using nationalism in the wrong way, right? Like anything, too much of anything is a bad thing. So what I think these sort of discussions do is it somehow inoculates us from being fools, right? It makes the citizenship much more aware of what is going on.
And that's, I think, somewhere that we should head. Thank you very much, Sachin-ji, for introducing us to this panel discussion in the political theory vertical titled Nationalism versus Internationalism, Is There a Middle Way?, which you will be hosting with some of our esteemed speakers and leading lights. And for anyone at home, again, you need to go to vichaarmanthan.org, register for your ticket for this exclusive event. And I look forward to seeing and speaking with as many of you as possible. From the 15th September, there's only a couple of days left. I'm sure everyone excited. So Sanjay, thank you once again for joining us.
Real pleasure, Sumaji.
Thank you. And to everyone at home, thank you for listening, and namaste.